Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on a Friday afternoon. Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, as you all know, is the Commissioner General for UNRWA. He'll be making some short remarks, and then we'll be taking some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirin, and it's a real pleasure to be with you. Yes, I will try to be short, though short is not always the case, but sorry for that. We had today the UNRWA Pledging Conference, which is the annual pledging conference organized by the President of the General Assembly. But this morning we had also, you have seen, a stakeout with a number of member states about the shared commitment that the countries have vis-à-vis UNRWA. As you know, there have been 118 countries having signed this shared commitment, among them all the members of the Security Council, and basically among the commitment that you heard from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Slovenia this morning, but there is a strong political support of the agency, and they're also stressing the indispensable role of the agency. I think it's particularly important at a time the agency is under severe attack. There have been quite a number of political attacks over the last few months, but there have been also, as you know, a number of allegations. Now, today, during the conference, I have stressed the importance of this political support, also to ensure the role of the agency in a possible transition once a ceasefire, and hopefully this ceasefire will once for all be agreed. But I believe that the agency has an important role to play in any day in between a ceasefire and possibly a day after. And I have stressed the importance of education, reminding that 1 in 2 persons in Gaza is below the age of 18, that education is the only thing the Palestinian has never ever been dispossessed of, and we have today more than 600,000 girls and boys of the age of primary and secondary school living in the rubble, deeply traumatized, and for which I believe we have a common responsibility to bring them back as a matter of urgency into an education setting. And basically, there is no one beside the state or no one beside the UNRWA which can bring back this number of children to an education setting in such a scale. We are already in a relation with a number of partners where basically we would have a kind of a three-stage approach. The first one is a psychosocial support being provided to the children, which, by the way, is already ongoing. Secondly, we will have to look at, in a second stage, to have a safe space where basically we can restart the learning, the reading, the writing, the math, and thirdly, at a later stage, which will require, in fact, to bring back the children into a formal education setting, is also the reconstruction of the school. But to be realistic, the reconstruction of the school will not take place anytime soon, or at least as long as there is no commitment from the international community that we are investing into the reconstruction. Maybe just 1 or 2 elements regarding the overall humanitarian situation in Gaza. We are already 9 months into this war. Displacement basically keep going on. You have seen over the last week that there have been evacuation order in the middle region in Khan Yunis, but also evacuation order in Gaza and in the north. In fact, it's a perpetual movement, a perpetual exodus, and we estimate that in average, people are on the move on once every month. So it's it's not uncommon to meet people who have moved since the beginning of the war 6, 7, 8 times, which is an indication that there is absolutely no safe space in the Gaza Strip. We are constantly on the edge of a front line, constantly on the edge or on the fence of military operation. One thing, and I know that you have stressed quite a lot for this, but we keep hearing so many different types of stories. You, as journalists, keep asking us, is it true, is it untrue? We hear narrative, there is another narrative. I know you are asking for months now to have access to Gaza, but I think it's also important to take note that we are 9 months in and there is still no international media present in Gaza. I think our national colleagues have made an extraordinary, have been absolutely heroic to try to report from what they describe as being hell on earth. But I think it is also time that once for all, you, the international journalists, do have access. You have been, you had access to all the possible war situations across the world. I don't believe that Gaza should be an exception. I have also, in my intervention this morning, beside the Gaza, reminded the situation in the West Bank. I keep saying that the West Bank, in fact, is overshadowed by the situation in Gaza, that if we wouldn't have Gaza today, the West Bank and East Jerusalem would definitely hit the headline. More than 500 people have been killed since October 7, among them 135 children. We can see that there have been increase of attack by Israeli settlers, that whenever there are military incursion or security operation taking place, they lead also to the large-scale destruction of home and public infrastructure. And this seems to be a pattern, a new pattern, which has emerged in the West Bank. Last but not least, because we were in a funding and pledging conference today, you know that the agency has gone through a chronic financial crisis for the last 10 years. We certainly have been the only agency operating for years now with a negative cash flow, and I can tell you it's highly and deeply unsettling. We always had a mismatch between what we are expected to deliver and the resource being made available. You remember that at the beginning of the year, when we had the allegation of the 12 staff, which became 19 staff, allegedly having participated to the massacre of October 7, at that time, 16 countries suspended their contribution to the agency. We are now a few months later. We have the OIOS report going on. We had the Catherine Colonna report, which has been presented to you. And today, I'm happy to say that at the exception of the United States, who cannot resume before March 2025 because of legislative constraint, all the other countries are back. Now the question is the UK back or not? We have signed. I hope that they will be back in the very short period, or at least these are the messages that we are receiving. As of today, I can say that we have visibility to function until the end of September. When we started the conference today, I told the member states that we do not have visibility beyond the month of August. I believe that today we have received a strong message of solidarity, of support. The day started by this commitment by these 118 member states. It has been re-echoed after that during the pledging conference, and we will continue now our effort to make sure that we can bridge between end of September and the end of the year. My concern today is that while we will find, I hope, ways to bridge with the support of the member states our core activities, we still have an emergency appeal, $1.2 million for the occupied Palestinian territories and $460 million for the Syrian crisis, which remains at this stage severely underfunded because both appeals are only 20% funded. So I think, Shirin, I will stop here, but obviously available for question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lazzarini, on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. Can you give us any figure on how much money was pledged today from donors? I know you just said that you got enough for 1 month to keep going, but that doesn't sound like a whole lot. And in your opening speech, you talked about the $1.2 billion needed for Gaza until the end of the year. And then you talked about funding for Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, the rest of the UNRWA operations, also being 20% funded. Was that the 460 million you were just talking about, or was that another number? I'm slightly confused. Thank you.
I am sorry, with numbers we can easily be confused. So I will try to be as didactic as possible. We have a core budget for our core activities, which basically covers the spending of our 30,000 workforce of the agency, where basically we provide all the education, primary health, the human development activity of the agency. That's what we call the core budget, the backbone of the organization. The appeal for that is about $850 million. Now, when I'm saying that we have visibility until the end of September, I refer to that. I refer to the backbone. In addition,
well, I'm interrupting you. That's for...
That's a regular budget.
But that's for Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Syria,
and
Lebanon.
Exactly. This is the regular budget, the normal human development activities that the agency is tasked or mandated to provide to the 5 million Palestinian refugees across the region. So that's a regular budget. In addition, whenever there is a humanitarian crisis, and we have two big crises in the region, one triggered by Syria, we have an additional humanitarian appeal for $460 million. That covers the assessed humanitarian need for Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, $460 million. And we have an additional humanitarian appeal for the war in Gaza and the crisis in the West Bank and East Jerusalem for a total amount of $1.2 billion. When I say that we are severely underfunded, it's mainly for the humanitarian appeal, both for Gaza and the West Bank and the Syrian crisis. The 20% refer to that. I would love to give you a figures, but I still do not have a final figures. I just ended the conference now. I have to see what's a repackaging or new money, but I'm confident enough after what I heard today that the agency now has enough resources to function till the end of September. I have to say over the last 3-4 years, I rarely had visibility for more than 2-3 months. So basically that means the coming couple of months, I will focus to make sure that we are bridging the financial gap between September and the end of December. We continue to work on a hand-to-mouth basis and on a monthly basis.
And just to make absolutely certain that until the end of September includes the appeal for the $1.2 billion appeal, the special appeal for Gaza, and money for the special Syrian appeal. There's enough for that until the end of September as well?
I can tell you that our agency, our staff, we continue to keep school running across the region, health center running. Everybody is paid until end of September. When it comes to the emergency appeal, the less we have, the less we can do. The more we have, the more we can do. Now, we have a pipeline when it comes, for example, to the food supply, to the food distribution, which will be running at least till fall. Today, already my colleagues are looking at making sure that in fall our pipeline does not break down, and that's where the emergency appeal becomes very important.
Okay.
I know it's a little bit complicated, but basically, you know, we have two portals: regular budget, emergency appeal, like any other agency.
Okay, let's start with Ibtisam, Bisan, and then Deji.
Thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. Good to see you. I want to ask you about something that you touched upon during your briefing, and that's the proposal to designate UNRWA as a terrorist organization by the Israeli authorities. If you could put that in a broader context, what would that mean not only to UNRWA and your operation there, but also to humanitarian and UN systems? And do you feel that you are getting enough support beside lip service from many countries? Are they putting enough pressure on the Israelis against the attacks on your facilities in Jerusalem, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, all the attack the agency is under is definitely a source of deep concern, as far as I'm concerned. There are various types of attack. The first one is the blatant disregard of our staff, facilities, and operation that we have observed in Gaza, for example. Nearly 200 staff killed. More than half of our installation have been damaged, sometimes completely destroyed. More than 500 people killed in our installation while they were seeking the protection of the United Nations. And we have also seen a kind of libre service over the last few months where our installations are used for military purposes, either by Palestinian armed group Hamas or by the Israeli army, but most of the time in places where UNRWA had to vacate. And we have also seen worrying trend that number of schools have been targeted over the last few days. Now, in addition of that, there are political pressure, call to dismantle the agencies. We keep hearing. We have a number of allegations. We have a smearing campaign. We have legislative effort. We have civil lawsuit pressure. We have a demonstration in Jerusalem, the arson attack also. And all this is definitely also fueling, I would say, an atmosphere of fear, anxiety, and a lot of pressure is put on our staff. Are we doing enough? I keep asking member states. First, we need investigative mechanism and ask for accountability for all those who are responsible of blatant disregard of IHL, of our staff and premises, because if we don't do this, this will become the new norm anywhere else. Secondly, I mean, there is absolutely, I have absolutely no illusion. Today there are attacks on UNRWA. tomorrow it can be an attack on any other UN organization or any other international organization, and we have to push back to make sure that this is not becoming a new norm. And when it comes to the attempt to label the organization as a terrorist organization, would this be the case, or would this happen? Basically, that might also become the new norm anywhere else in the world. Whenever we want to get rid of an organization or an humanitarian organization, basically in any kind of conflict situation or autocratic type of environment, you just label terrorists to get rid of the organization. So there is a real danger, and I keep drawing the attention of the member states that we have to vehemently push back against this type of attack, because these are also assault on our, on the multilateralism, on our shared value within the international community. Are we doing enough? We can always do more, and there is no doubt about that.
Thank you. Yeah, Bisan.
Thank you very much, Bisan Aboukwek with Al Jazeera Arabic. The U.S. signed the declaration this morning, but they did not clearly participate in the conference. How do you think, or what visibility do you have that their signing of this declaration might be translated into, since they cannot actually resume funding before next year, given the what has been passed by Congress? And I have another question too. You mentioned that UNRWA is the agency that is better equipped clearly to bring back children in Gaza to schools, but of course there's going to be a reconstruction process. I mean, I know this is hypothetical, but how much time would it take if there is a ceasefire to actually get this going, and would more money be needed for that reconstruction effort, given what has happened to UNRWA schools and them being targeted?
I think on the first question, you have to ask the question in Washington and the administration, but it was a very good sign to have the United States joining the 117 other countries for the shared commitment vis-à-vis UNRWA, which indicates that they are also providing the necessary political support to the agency, and it's important for other countries also to know that there is such a support. When it comes to the reconstruction, I think we really have to look at a phased approach. I keep talking about the day in between, in fact, because I believe that there will be a long period between the day there will be a ceasefire and the day we can really talk about the day after or the reconstruction. There will be a long period during which, if you start to invest into reconstruction, you need also to have the necessary trust and confidence that you can invest development money and reconstruction money in the Gaza Strip, and this will very much depend on the political solution being on the table and the level of trust the various parties will have vis-à-vis this political solution, which also needs to be time-bound. So it's extremely difficult to talk about a timeline when we talk about reconstruction. But what I am saying and warning is we do not have the luxury of time when it comes to bring back these children into an education environment. And we have to do so before even we start to rebuild the school. We have to find ways, because the more we will be waiting, the more we will be sowing the seeds for more, resentment, for more despair, and the children will be more and more exposed to possible recruitment with a new criminal group or armed group in the Gaza Strip, and that would also mean the sacrifice of a generation.
Deji, and then Abdul Hamid, and then Mike.
Hi, Mr. Lazzarini. Deutsche with China Central Television. I'm sorry, I got a couple of questions. First, I want to ask for a clarification. You just mentioned that UNRWA facilities has been used by Hamas and Israel military. You said that. Is that the case?
I am saying that we keep receiving allegation report of discovery of harms being hidden. We can see sometimes on video in social media that you have armed people in UNRWA premises. We see in some social media video of presence of the Israeli army in UN premises. So basically, there are multiple allegations and reports of UN premises being used by armed element.
Oh, okay.
That's also the reason why, I cannot tell you what happened, when. These are all places which have been vacated, and this is also the reason why I do believe we need a board of inquiry once the environment permits, to clearly understand what happened and who was responsible.
Okay. So actually, my questions are, sorry. First, obviously, you have to deal with the Israeli officials, and they are also labeling UNRWA, trying to label UNRWA as terrorist group. How would you describe the sentiment when you're talking with Israeli officers about your cooperation? And second, you mentioned that $1.2 billion for the emergency Gaza appeal, and you said you cannot really predict that long term. But we heard here repeatedly that it's a very opportunistic operation in Gaza. So for this $1.2 billion, how are you going to spend it if you don't have a very stable or, let's say, frequent operation inside Gaza? Thank you.
Right now, it's extraordinarily difficult to operate in Gaza. And I'm sure that you heard many of my colleagues who came here to describe to you the challenges due to the collapse of the law and order, of civil order, the chaotic type of environment, the lootings, the hindrances due to the military operation, the difficulties we have also in deconfliction. So the operating environment is extraordinarily difficult nowadays. Now, when we talk about an appeal of $1.2 billion, it's also based on an environment where we can properly operate. Today, we are talking about collectively from the UN agencies of 40, 50 trucks coming in an ideal environment. And if we would just, collectively try to cover all the humanitarian needs, we would need much more than that. So again, the 1.2 is based on the most critical assessed humanitarian needs, but the environment today does not allow us to fully deploy the capacity we would have would the environment be conducive for that. Now, the second question is more about, the
communication between you and the Israeli officials.
There is always, and I keep reminding this, two levels of communication. We have the pragmatic and operational communication, which takes place on a day-to-day basis, sometimes hour-to-hour basis, with the COGAT, with the army in Gaza. And then you have, I would say, the more political type of communication, where indeed here you have more of this, I would say, information, counter-information type of situation, allegation, smearing campaign, you say, we say, and that's the reason why also sometimes it would be good that in addition to the you say, we say, that the journalists be also present and can make their own opinion on what is really going in places like Gaza.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini. Nice to see you again. I have a few questions as well. This is Abdul Hamid Sayam from Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Yeah. Last Saturday, there was an attack on Al-Jaouni UNRWA school. 16 people were killed, 56 wounded. You voice your concern and you ask for investigation. You have been asking for investigation again and again and again, and not one single incident was investigated. But when there was allegations against UNRWA, immediately 2 tracks of investigation. Not one, but 2. Why is that? That's one question. Second, normally if the pro-Israeli advocates, they attack the agency, if they cannot dismantle it, then they try to attack the person, the way they did with, for example, Pierre Cramboul. They attacked him personally. Are you concerned about yourself? I think you are a saint. There is nothing they can catch you about. Otherwise, they will attack you personally. Are you concerned about that? And last but not least, how do you see the concept of the right of return, which is, in fact, it is the target of all this smearing campaign against UNRWA? Thank you.
I will start with the last question. I think I have been clear, for example, today again with the member state that let's do no mistake, all the attack against the agency are ultimately politically motivated. I do not believe it's a question of neutrality. Neutrality, we had a review, and I'm very happy that we had this track and this review because it has helped, in fact, to address, I would say, problem of perception with our donors. It was important that the review tells them that UNRWA has a system of risk management which are more robust than any other UN agency or international organization, but because of the context we are operating in, deeply polarized, deeply politicized, and because of our footprint and particularity, we can still do more, and hence the 50 recommendation of Catherine Colonna's report that we have agreed and embraced. So that was important. But I also keep saying to the member state, let's do no mistake. The attack ultimately are politically motivated. They are aiming at stripping the Palestinian from the refugee statute, and through this, they are aiming at undermining the aspiration to self-determination of the Palestinian, and for some, most likely also, to undermine, the two-state solution being on the table. So that's, I believe that part of this concerted attacks are politically motivated. Would I take the same decision today with the 12 or 19 staff? Yes, I would. At that time, I knew that if the agency, first of all, the nature of the allegation was absolutely terrible, was unprecedented as an agency. I also say that would these people be recognized responsible? Would, hypothèse, that would be a terrible betrayal vis-à-vis the Palestinian refugees and the mandate of the agency. But I think it was very important. Yeah, I think it was very important to take at that time the necessary action, and this were action the agency could take. When it comes to the investigation or board of inquiry that I'm calling for, when it comes to the attack on the premises, it's very different because we are still in a war zone. We are still military operation are going on, and if you want to do an investigation, you have to send people on the ground to collect information, to have a forensic evidence, and for the time being, it's impossible to conduct an independent investigation of this nature. I really hope that once we have a ceasefire, once the environment becomes more conducive, that such type of investigation take place. It has taken place in 2014 following the attack on some of our premises. We are now in 2024, and the scale is just cannot be compared to what happened in 2014, but at least we had already a precedent at that time. Thank you.
Mike, please go ahead.
Mr. Commissioner General, welcome back to New York. Mike Wagenheim with I-24 News. I had two questions for you. I want to ask them separately. Building on the you say, we say theme that you talked about a few moments ago, UNRWA has been handling the count of humanitarian aid going into Gaza, which, and please correct me if I'm wrong, OCHA handled this in previous conflicts. It's now under UNRWA's auspices. UNRWA was told for many months by COGAT and by other analysts that its count was wrong, that it was off by exponentially. The IPC's Famine Review Committee came out with a report last month confirming that it simply has not been counting certain points of entry, hasn't been counting the correct amount of trucks coming in, hasn't been counting private food sources coming in. The difference between starvation and survival, essentially, is how far UNRWA has been off. Why did UNRWA persist and insist for so long on keeping what was known to be an incorrect count of humanitarian aid coming in?
Thank you. I think you are mixing two things. One is the convoys and the counting of what comes into Gaza, and the second one is the IPC, and the IPC basically is to measure how acute the malnutrition could be in Gaza, and this is measured by experts from WFP, FAO, UNICEF, and so on, and they don't count the number of trucks coming in. They look at what's available in the market for the people, and do people have access to what is available or not available, because basically this is what is causing malnutrition. So that's the IPC. When it comes to the counting, I mean, let's be extremely clear. UNRWA has been only present in Rafah when it was open and in Kerem Shalom. We have not been present anywhere else. So we can monitor only what comes in for the broader UN community. And basically, that was the entry in Rafah, and that was the entry in Kerem Shalom that we were operating. Secondly, there have been also, and here is, if you talk, I'm not an expert, but if you talk to people on the ground, they're also saying, oh, there is a discrepancy on the number of trucks. You have smaller trucks going to Kerem Shalom and dropping their goods, and you have larger trucks inside Gaza going to pick up. So if you need 2 trucks to come in and 1 truck's in, we basically count the trucks we are dealing with, because basically that's what's being moved in Gaza. So here, I know that there have been, different way of counting. I was asked recently in a press conference, who is telling the truth? I say everyone is telling his own truth when it comes to the trucks and what is coming in. But the way of counting has been different, and we are also talking about different size of trucks. But ultimately, when we talk about how bad is the malnutrition, how bad is the hunger in Gaza, it has nothing to do with counting trucks in a crossing point. It has all to do with what is really available and accessible for the people. And if it is not available and not accessible, that's where it starts to impact people. And the IPC has been very clear. Hunger has spread all across Gaza, and you had pocket of acute malnutrition, phase 4, phase 5, looming, edging close to a situation of famine and starvation in some pocket. At one point, it was the north, and later on, Eretz started to open, less people in the north, the situation has been stabilized and slightly reversed. And then in the south, where the situation was better until during the month of April, all of a sudden started to deteriorate again. At the time, Rafah started to shut down. Less could come in from Kerem Shalom. People were moved again at multiple occasions in the center. And again, there have been pockets where the situation has again deteriorated. But the IPC and the calculation of what comes in are two unrelated exercises.
So a quick follow-up then. If UNRWA doesn't have the resources to staff all of the entry points and doesn't have the resources to count the private food deliveries coming in, the commercial food deliveries, which the IPC also noted, what good is its numbers to begin with if they're not reflecting the reality?
Listen, UNRWA has been authorized to be present only in Kerem Shalom and in Rafah. UNRWA was not authorized to be anywhere else as a starting point. Secondly, UNRWA has always contributed to the counting of trucks we were handling for the broader UN community and the humanitarian community. That's what we are doing. We are not handling for the commercial sector. Now, people are saying the commercial sector came in, more came in. The question after that, people were saying, well, they came in with goods that no one really could have access because they cannot afford to buy what they brought in to the market. So that's a different, again, but it's a discussion which is impacting the discussion on the IPC on do we have access or can we afford access to the food being made available. Now, for the humanitarian community, we have a humanitarian coordinator on OCHA, which consolidates all the information we are receiving, and we contribute to this.
Second question. I tried to contact your office for an answer, and they didn't get back to me, but I know you guys have your hands full. There is an allegation made in a civil lawsuit filed in New York that UNRWA's policy in Gaza is to distribute aid in US dollars in cash, and that policy only applies in Gaza. It does not apply in the Palestinian territories in Judea and Samaria. It does not apply in Lebanon. It does not apply in Syria. Is that factually correct?
Factually, if I remember well, they talk also about salaries being paid only in dollar in Gaza. This is factually incorrect.
Not just salaries, but aid as well.
I'm saying salaries was the main issue in this lawsuit. We pay salaries in dollar in Lebanon, and we pay also our staff in Syria on a dollar base, like we do in Gaza. Ultimately, the distribution, if you talk about the cash assistance, if I'm not mistaken, I say if, it's in shekel. It's not in dollar. But our reference of what we are doing, it's always at the beginning, because our budget are in dollar, our contribution are in dollar, but the cash which would be distributed would be in shekel. But I can come back to you to be 100% sure.
I want to be 100% sure.
That's my instinctive answer to you.
Last thing isn't a question, just a comment. I know you tried to submit a letter to an Israeli newspaper in Hebrew to reach out to the Israeli public with your thoughts and your sentiments, and that newspaper, I guess, rejected that particular letter. You're more than welcome anytime to speak to the Israeli public through my outlet, and we'll be happy to have you.
Thank you. This is well noted. Can I just clarify this? You might know that I issued an essay in the New York Times, and basically there is 30 days of copyright, and after 30 days, this essay has been offered to other newspaper, and that's what was offered. So it was not a different paper than the essay published in the New York Times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room? Online, I see somebody's hand, or are you just waving goodbye? Please speak up.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Lazzarini. Mr. Lazzarini, Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York, Ital Press. I know it's not your decision, but if the Security Council ask you an opinion on UN mission, I mean UN peace mission for Gaza. What will be your answer? Do you think it's a good idea and something like similar to UNIFIL, or you think that for Gaza is not a good idea?
My honest answer right now is I don't know what I would advise, because it all depends on where we are, in terms of offered political solution, what's acceptable, what has been negotiated, not negotiated. Is this something that everybody wants, or is it opposed by certain parties? I think I need more element before being able to articulate even an advice. I won't be asked, because I'm just the commissioner of UNRWA and not necessarily a political expert, but I would expect that anyone providing an advice would need a little bit more element. But I know that the issue of international presence it pops up from time to time in some discussion that shows also the collective difficulties we have right now to envision what a day after might look like in the context of Gaza right now.
Okay.
I think,
can we just take 2 more questions? Yes. Okay. Let's start with Gabrielle, and then we go to Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Mr. Lazzarini. I know it's been a long day. Appreciate you taking another question for me. I just want to clarify. Most of my colleagues have asked all my questions, but I just want to clarify. You said of the 16 countries that paused or suspended funding to UNRWA after the Israeli allegations, 15 of those countries have come back. Is that correct?
I said most came back, 14 officially came back, okay. And I believe that very soon I will be able to say 15 came back.
Okay,
but again, I cannot.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Just one last question. Just taking a step back for a second. Have you thought about how this conflict has changed UNRWA forever? How the organization might change in the future once this conflict is over?
I keep asking myself this question. I was even asking myself this question before October 7. And one of the questions I tried always to envision was this year we are marking the 75th. 75th UNRWA exists because there is no political solution. Let's be clear. But then the question I wanted to ask to member states was, but what if the next symbolic anniversary, which might be 100 years, there is still no political solution? Would the international community still fund and renew the mandate of an agency like ours, providing public-like services to one of the most destitute communities in the region? And I try to bring this question on the table to try to collectively start to think about, not changing the mandate, but we were in such a situation where our main existential threat was the financial crisis. The discrepancy and the tension between what we are asked to deliver and the expectation and the resource being made available. And we all know that before this, this tragedy we are all witnessing, and this seismic transformation in the region, before the conflict was not a priority anymore of the international community. It was deprioritized. And we started to deeply suffer from this indifference. Everybody suffered. The political process was stalled. There was absolutely nothing. No one knew in which direction it was going. But we, as an agency, became the proxy of that. So I tried to bring this conversation. Now today, yes, it is important. There is a discussion about what could be, what should be the role of UNRWA in Gaza now, on the day in between, the day after, I do believe that our main comparative advantage is education, it's primary health. No one else is in a position to provide these services in Gaza. But when it comes to rebuilding the hardware, that's not necessarily where we have a comparative advantage. And anyway, it is destroyed to such a scale that only bigger institutions used to that can do a better job than we would do. So yes, there is quite a number of reflection going on. Now, I don't have the answer in 2 words.
Appreciated. Well, Abdelhamid, if you keep it short, because I think we're done almost.
Yeah, I'll be short.
Yes.
First, I strongly wish that you say Karim Abu Salim and not Karim Shalom.
That's my inability to...
Okay, that's second. And the second question fast, when was last time you were in Gaza, and if you want to go now, will you be prevented from going to Gaza now, as we speak?
As I speak, I have asked to go, I think 3 weeks ago, and I haven't received the authorization. As we speak today, my visa for Jerusalem is not yet renewed.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And last, there was a memorandum signed by UNRWA and Israel right after the occupation of 1967. Very important memorandum of understanding. Can you make it available to us?
When was it signed?
1967, after the occupation. Israel was very concerned about the UNRWA services to be cut off from the refugees and they might revolt. So the military leader, military governor of Israel, rushed to UNRWA office in Sheikh Jarrah and signed a memorandum of understanding, very detailed one. Could it be available?
First of all, I need to know if I can find this memorandum. So thank you for the information. We'll ask my team to look into it. And once I'm aware of this memorandum, I will let you know if I can make it available.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we're done with the questions.
United Kingdom, as you know, is today they have announced that they are looking at coming back. I don't, the decision is not taken, but they are reviewing their position regarding the funding.
Thank you so much.
And
thank you.
I have expressed some optimism on this one.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Lazzarini. Thank you.